Going over IRS Form W-7A, Application for Taxpayer Identification Number for Pending U.S. Adoptions. So this tax form is used by adoptive parents who are expecting that they will complete an adoption of a child, but not in time for them to be able to claim that child on their tax return with a social security number. So a an adoption taxpayer identification number, or ATIN, is the temporary 9-digit number that taxpayers would use while they're in the adoption process and before their child receives their social security number. So before we complete this form, which is fairly straightforward, there are a couple of things that you should know about it. For example, when you should file Form W-7A. So according to the form instructions, taxpayers should file this form if all of the following conditions apply. 1, you have a child living with you who is placed in your home for legal adoption by an authorized placement agency. 2, you cannot obtain the child's existing social security number even though you have made a reasonable attempt to obtain it from birth parents, the placement agency, or other persons. 3, you cannot obtain a social security number for the child from the SSA because the adoption is not yet final. And 4, you are eligible to claim the child as a dependent on your tax return. So that last part is pretty important because if you're able to claim the child as a dependent, then you may be eligible to claim certain tax benefits on that child's behalf. So examples of tax credits or benefits that you may be able to claim would be the dependency exemption, which really has not mattered too much over the past several years and probably will not until some of the changes from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expire in 2025. The credit for child and dependent care services, which you would claim on IRS Form 2441. The adoption credit, which you would claim by filing IRS Form 8839, or the child tax credit, which you would claim on Schedule 8812. However, even with an ATIN, you would not be able to claim the earned income tax credit on behalf of your child until he or she obtains a social security number. That is a requirement of claiming the earned income tax credit, is that the qualifying child must have a social security number, not an ITIN, not an ATIN. So let's go over the steps of this form, and then once we figure out step by step how to complete this form, we'll talk about other filing requirements. So this is a one-page tax form. It's pretty straightforward. At the top, we're going to enter the adoptive parents' information. So in this case, we have John and Mary Doe, their last name, first name, and social security number. If you have 2 adoptive parents, then both parents must have their names in the order in which you would see it on an income tax return. And then they would sign the bottom in the order. So, John and Mary Doe would sign here, they would date it, and then they would enter a daytime telephone number. The adoptive parent address is pretty straightforward. In this case, 123 Anywhere Road, Anytown, Texas, 12345. That's the standard zip code for John Doe. However, if you changed your mailing address after your most recent tax return, you should also file IRS Form 8822 to notify the Internal Revenue Service of your address change. Simply filing Form W-7A does not update your official IRS records. So make sure you file IRS Form 8822 if you've changed your address recently. In line 3, there are 2 parts to this. In line 3A, you'll enter the child's name as it would appear on your tax return as your dependent. On line 3B, this would be the child's birth name if it's different and if it's known to you. In line 4, you would enter the date of birth, which I did not do here. Let's just say that our child, Susan Doe, was born on June 30th, 2000. She's a female. She was born in Los Angeles, California. If there's a foreign address, then you would need to include the city, the province or the state, and then the country without abbreviating the country's name. So if the child was born in France, you would spell out France instead of just FR. And then finally, line 5, the placement agency information. So in this case, Acme Adoption Solutions happens to be in the same town as the Does, and they placed Susan with her parents on June 1st of 2023. And then both parents would sign this and date it, and then enter a daytime telephone number for any other questions. So this tax form is pretty straightforward, and we've gone over who must file it, but so now the question is, how do you file it? So you need to include some supporting documentation when you're filing this form. As a general rule, the IRS will accept one of the following documents that satisfies this requirement. So 1, a copy of the placement agreement that was entered between you and an authorized placement agency with respect to this child. 2, a copy of the document signed by a hospital official authorizing the release of a newborn child from the hospital to you for legal adoption. 3, a copy of the child order or a court order or other court document ordering or approving the placement of the prospective adoptive child. Or 4, an affidavit signed by the adoption attorney or a government official who placed the child with you for legal adoption pursuant to state law. For foreign adoptions, so if you adopt a foreign child with either U.S. citizenship or resident alien status, then you would also need to include a copy of your child's green card, certificate of citizenship, or a passport with I-551 stamp. So if the child's adoption is final for a foreign child, but you're not able to get a social security number for that child, then you may need to contact the IRS to request an extension or reactivation of the adoption taxpayer ID number. And if you request the extension or the reactivation, you should also include the Social Security Administration's denial letter or an explanation of your correspondence. According to the IRS, it should take about 4 to 8 weeks to receive this. So when you're filing your income tax return, you should plan accordingly. So if you're looking to claim this child as a dependent for tax return purposes, then filing in the March timeframe may be problematic. You may have to file an extension or an amended return depending on how you filed your original return. So if you file an extension and then the ATIN comes in during your extension due date, then that's fine. You would simply be able to claim the credits and entitlements as normal. However, your tax extension is only an extension to file your return, not necessarily an extension of your time to pay. So at least you should have prepaid your expected tax liability so that you're not liable for underpayment penalties. And then if you've already filed your tax return for the year and you're looking to use an ATIN to claim a tax credit, then you may need to file an amended return on Form 1040X. So there is a mailing address where you would send this form. For brevity, we've put that in the article so that you don't have to listen to this and re-record it or re-listen to this. Simply go to our article, which you can find on teachmepersonalfinance.com. Type in IRS form W-7A in the search bar, and you should see our article appear. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. And if you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll post links in the show notes of all the forms that we referenced in this video. But if you like our channel, if there's any questions, any comments, or if there's a topic that you would like to see addressed in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.